Hello, it's me, Speedy Pichu, and today I'm going to be doing something different. I was planning to make more edited videos this year, but so far I've had zero progress, so I'm going to do a brief discussion video. Also, I'm not going to be doing monthly things. I'll talk more about this at the end. But critical hits. Critical hits are, well, they're critical hits. If you've played an RPG, you know what these are exactly. I feel they originate in, like, Dungeons and Dragons. I've been doing that recently, which is, like, when you roll a 20, that's a critical hit, and they do a lot of damage. Okay, that's just what critical hits are in a general basis. They are lucky hits. You try to hit something, you might crit, and that kills it. Well, it doesn't kill it, but it does a lot of damage if you get a critical hit. I wanted to talk about critical hits in different games. First off, brief stuff I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to be talking about headshots or backstabs in TF2, I will be talking about, like, headshots in TF2, but I won't be talking about stuff that are just headshots that are called critical hits. I'm not counting those. I'm also not counting critical fails. This is just going to be critical hits in video games. I'm also only going to be talking about games I've played. I have not played Fire Emblem, and I believe critical hits are different in that, but I won't talk about it. I've also played some MOBAs, but I have not played League of Legends, and I feel that's the only one I could really talk about, like, without being ignored. So first, Bulbapedia. I'm using Pokemon as an example because this is how critical hits work in most RPG video games. Generally, when you go for an attack, there is a random chance that an attack will crit. Gen 1 is dumb. Generation 1, it's based on your speed, and in a lot of other games, it will be based on your luck. I will get up to that later. In, like, Pokemon, it's just, at this point, it's a random chance, and it is set, I believe. For the most part, it is, like, 6 to 4% at the moment. That's what it's basically been. It's recently got to 4% chance. So crits are much less likely now. Yeah. You can also, this is a common thing, you can usually raise it. You can't, like, in Pokemon, a way you would raise it would be the move Focus Energy. As an example, you can use, sometimes it's a setup move to do more critical hits. And some moves just have a higher chance of crit, such as Slash. So these are generally your RPG critical hits. And I honestly like these. These are just fun. I just have fun with these in games, and they're usually fine. They can be annoying. I do know my first game was Generation 6, so I didn't mind critical hits that much. They used to do double damage. They do a 1.5 times damage, but and they ignore stat changes. So they are, like, a unique thing that can change a battle. And while you can plan, you shouldn't plan around critical hits for the most part. It is very unreliable. It's literally luck-based. And, like, generally, like, you can get to the point where you will just always crit, but that's a that requires a lot of effort. And that is usually not worth it because that is, well, you're going to be using a lot of stuff just to do it. So these are fine, in my opinion. But what about when they're not fine? Team Fortress 2. Okay, I don't have any footage for these, unfortunately, but Team Fortress 2 critical hits are known for not being okay. They are kind of terrible for most people. This is a thing. The thing is, not always. This is an Engineer of the Frontier Justice. That is a critical hit that will do triple damage. The thing is, that's not the problem. The problem is kind of this. Actually, it's not this. It's more... Okay, actually, this doesn't have a good footage, but basically, you could... I think it's this achievement. The random chance to get a critical hit is actually less than in Pokemon for the most part. Or at least at the start, I think. It starts at 2. With the highest at 12, but that's for a lot of effort. The problem is the value. in Pokemon, there was like 8 critical hits now do 1.5 damage. In Team Fortress 2, they do triple damage. And another thing is, this is a multiplayer game. A very competitive well, not very competitive, but there's a decent amount of competition in this with critical hits that can very quickly change a battle in a way that is both unpredictable and just... The thing is, comparing these, in Pokemon, if you get a critical hit, you might take out an opponent 1 turn earlier. Because that 1.5 damage, usually, most of the time, you're able to, like... Unless you're, like... Usually, you're gonna one-shot something with... A critical hit usually won't make a huge difference. If something takes 3 hits to take out, a critical hit might take that down to 2. However, that would be only on the second hit, if you plan for that. But in Team Fortress 2, since these do triple damage, and Team Fortress 2 has a lot more of taking stuff out very quickly, or, like, taking 2 shots, doing triple damage on the first shot just usually kills most things in 1 hit. There's also mini crits, which are less bad for the most part, because they're less of a problem, and they're not random. They are almost all... Having a random mini crit would still not be fun. It would be less bad for the most part, I've heard. But this is all opinion and stuff, and too much... And I'm trying to talk about other games as well. Fallout. I will confess, I have only played Fallout 4. In the other Fallout games, they are all very luck-based. And I think it's based on your luck stat, because there's a luck stat in Fallout. There's 7 stats. Also, sorry if I'm not explaining these well. This is just a briefing on critical hits. If you played these games, you might know what I'm talking about. In fact, you will know what I'm talking about. Hopefully. But if you haven't played these games, this might be confusing, so sorry about that. I believe in older games, like sneak attacks have a higher chance of doing critical hits. I know in Fallout 1 that shooting someone in the eyes has a lot of critical chance. However, here, Fallout 4, it is very different. You have a system, VATS, where if you hit enemies with it, you can build up a critical hit that you can spend. It's basically a reward for doing damage, kind of like in Team Fortress 2, but rather than being random chance, it's just you do damage in this specific mode, and you get rewarded with the potential to do one very strong attack. Though, I will note, it is probably more useful that they never miss. So even if you have a 1% chance to hit, you can use a crit to almost guarantee a hit, provided you have more than 0% chance. It's based on your luck stat still, but a luck stat rather increases the rate at which you build up critical hit. You can also do different stuff with perks, which is like stuff you can invest in. Critical hits in Fallout 4 are a pretty... I like them, honestly. They are fun, and one of the big things that differentiates, like, TF2 critical hits from the rest of these is that these are mostly... Team Fortress 2 is a multiplayer shooting game. This is a single-player game, and also, it's just an RPG. In general, the increased critical hits are... Okay, critical hits in Team Fortress 2, the big problem is just how it can very drastically change a battle in a shooting game that is multiplayer, so there's a lot of anger generated by that, because when you just snipe someone from across the map with a critical shot in Fallout, the super mutant doesn't, I mean, they care, but there's no anger in that. There might be shock if you kill something you didn't expect to, but that's not necessarily a bad thing on its own. However, if you get, like, hit with a critical rocket from the other side of the map and die, that is infuriating. And then in, like, Pokemon, for the most part, critical hits are not going to be a drastic change in a battle. And, like, that's just a thing. Like, they can negatively impact the battle. If you're playing against... This is all considering against people, because it's the Fallout thing if you're just, like, doing single player. Critical hits can be, like, they can be annoying, and if you get really unlucky, it can be really bad, like, especially in Gen 1, since crits are very common. However, generally, like, critical hits, if someone is critting a lot, it's because they invested into it. Like, they're using super luck, they're using, like, a scope lens, they're using slash or focus energy. It's not that surprising. And they're also not that drastic. Then there's also, I'm going to bring this up, critical hits in Stardew Valley. It's not really worth talking about that much. They are a thing and they can be impactful. It's just that they are relatively uncommon. It is uncommon to get a critical hit, as, you know, that's how these usually are. But they also don't they can drastically change a battle, but you're fighting a ton of monsters. I would also like to bring up in MOBA games, since I have played those, you can invest to do critical hits very often. However, that can come at the cost of attack power. In fact, that's a thing with a lot of these games. Critical hits, like outside of Team Fortress 2 and Fallout, these two, a critical hit is usually random and doesn't come at the cost of power, which actually brings to weapons that can do this. For example, the Frontier Justice. In order to get these critical hits, what makes them fair is that you go from 6 shots to 3 per magazine. So what that feels fair, because they can do a lot of damage in this right situation. But if you're in the wrong situation, it is a very big handicap. Such as if you're fighting a heavy and a full magazine from the Frontier Justice without critical hits will not take out a heavy, and you're just kind of dead. If you have a critical hit, it can be anywhere from your entire clip still, but the first shot is going to take out like half his health. Or if you have 2 critical hits, you could 2-shot him in what normally takes 4 shots. Which is very valuable if you can do that. However, in the wrong situation, it's bad. And these are earned through killing someone with your sentry. Sorry if this doesn't make sense. I can't explain the games, unfortunately. I might remake a video like this if I get more skilled at this. I remember, like, there's also... Actually, it reminds me, one more thing was, like, Hero in Smash Bros. He comes from an RPG where it functions basically... I think it functions I've never played Dragon Quest. I think it functions like Pokemon, where, like, it's a random chance to do a ton more damage. It's like... I don't know if it's more than 1.5 times, but in Smash Bros. It's a lot more than 1.5 times the damage with critical hit on hero smash attacks. And because of that, they are very... And it's a 1 in 8 chance. The thing is, these are slow attacks. They still generate... I don't think they generate as much anger as critical hits in Team Fortress 2, especially since they're limited to one character, rather than being a universal thing. So, yeah. That's all for today. Sorry if I went back to Team Fortress 2 a lot. It's because Team Fortress 2, I feel... for a lot of people, is like the worst case for critical hits, because critical hits in this game are not popular. A lot of people really do not like critical hits. When they are earned for something like the Kritzkrieg, it's generally fine. It can be annoying, but, like, it's not necessarily more annoying than just a standard Uber, aside from just dying faster. It's more just the luck thing. Which is what all these have, luck. That's why they're critical hits. Yeah. Generally, for, like, brief recap, again, like, another thing I would like to note is that critical hits, you can often make them more likely. Focus energy in Pokemon. You can get a higher luck stat in Fallout. Team Fortress 2, this is just completely... unfun, aside from, like, I mean, you can increase your critical hit chance by doing more damage, but that's just being good at the game. and that's not advice. You can use weapons that do it, but it's at a cost. Like, you can't increase your chance of getting a random crit, which is good. I mean, you can increase it, but, like, you can't just, like, make a strategy around it for the most part in a very reasonable way, which is a good thing, though it also highlights a problem with Team Fortress 2. Sorry about ragging on it so much. And then in Stardew Valley, you can also increase your crit chance throughout the game. Like, this is a somewhat early weapon that has a 2%. The thing is, you really do not care about critical hits that much in Stardew Valley. You're just going to want higher attack. And it should be noted, in, like, a lot of these games, that's a problem. Like, in... sorry if it cut out briefly. My phone just reached a low battery. In, like, here, sure, you could be using focus energy to increase the chance you do 1.5 damage. Why do that when you can use a Swords Dance to guarantee double it? It's the main thing you want a critical hit for is bypassing stat changes, which is not really that good of a purpose. For Fallout, it's actually not necessarily one because of the way you build it up. If you're building around it, you do have to get, like, putting more stuff into luck. You are possibly giving up points in other stats, so, like, though you're probably putting points into luck for, like, some abilities like Critical Banker, which affects critical hits. There's a lot with it. I could make an entire video about critical hits in Fallout. We're just going to ignore Team Fortress 2 from this point. And, yeah. That's all I have to say on critical hits for today. Sorry if this is a brief bit of a rudimentary video, and I haven't been able to upload as much because break has not been kind to me, and it's generally just a thing of I don't have as much time, and I want to try and go for more, like, quality over quantity videos, but I can't really do that, unfortunately, for now. Maybe if I eventually get more time, like, I might do some more quality videos over the summer. But, unfortunately, until then, this might have to be what we do. Hopefully you all enjoyed this talk about critical hits, though. And I would like to see you all next time. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Bye.